Hi, Angelica. Welcome. Hello, Karen. Karen Bird's here from Canada. Carol, you joined us yesterday in the networking sessions. It's good to see you again. Amber Sells as well. Nice to see you, Bridget. Anna, Aletha, Karina, man, all these beautiful names. Emily, Deborah, Sherry, welcome. What we're doing right now is we're letting everybody into the room before we start. Carol Ross, it is so nice to see all of you coming in, ready for this presentation. I am thrilled to introduce my friend, Laura Peters. Laura is going to be going through a discussion with me about breaking boundaries. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lead Laura with questions as opposed to a traditional presentation. So welcome to everyone who's now joined the room. If I didn't say your name, it's only because I can't read that fast. And if you guys have any questions at all for Laura during her presentation, there is a little section at the bottom of the chat window that is called Q&A, and that's where you can choose to send a question either with your name attached to it or completely anonymous. And at the end of the presentation, we will connect you with Laura when you've sent those questions in so that she can answer them if she doesn't get to them in her presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Laura, the first question I want to ask you is a little bit about your background. So can you tell us how you started your life as a motorcyclist?
I started riding about 10 years ago, no, 12 years ago now. Quite a long, well, lifetime ago. Basically since then I've transitioned, been riding two years since I've transitioned, so it's been an interesting experience learning to make friends again and learning to ride with different people.
What was your first motorcycle?
First bike was a Kawasaki ZR 750. It was a lovely looking bike, just didn't gel with it. Can't understand why.
How long did you ride that before you stopped riding?
Probably only about 3 months. It was awkward. Getting in and out of my garage was a nightmare. I only had one person locally that I could ride with. He was actually an ex-track rider. So on the road, he's just open throttle, gone, left me standing. And I was a case of, yeah, I don't like this. Didn't have any friends locally to ride with. Didn't know any groups or anything. So I kind of went, yeah, no, not for me at the moment. Parked it up, sold the bike.
Okay. And then I know that you returned to motorcycling in 2018. So can you tell us a little bit more about your return to motorcycling?
I basically came back after a little bit of a nudge or two from friends. They knew I wanted to ride, and they were saying, yeah, you really ought to get back into riding. There's this fabulous group called Motorbike Women who are a really nice open group, non-judgmental. Get yourself a bike, get in there, come ride with us, go and do coffee ride outs, whatever with them, and just enjoy yourself. I've actually organised events for some of the local ladies since, which has been quite nice.
That sounds great. What kind of bike did you get when you returned to riding?
Bit of a change from the first one. I went to a 30-year-old Yamaha FZR 400 sport bike, and it was a good laugh. Well, it actually still is. I still have it. It's part of my growing fleet.
So you say growing fleet. How many bikes do you have now?
As of a couple of months ago, 3 now. I accidentally bought a bike by, yeah. I bought a leather riding jacket, and I went, it doesn't suit the Tiger, doesn't suit the FZR, need something for it to go on. So I have the FZR, I have a Triumph Tiger 800, and I have a Triumph Street Triple.
That's quite a fleet. Okay, so You mentioned just a moment ago that this group that you found in England has been not judgmental. What does that mean to you, really?
I just love the fact that I can turn up at the events, meet people like yourself at other events. Nobody judges me. Nobody worries about who I used to be, what I look like, whether I fit the same as everybody else, whether I stand out, whatever. They just take me for who I am. Can see I'm quite a nice, laid back, friendly person, and just get on with sort of having a fun day out, or whatever we're doing.
So how has that helped you kind of transition into who you are now? I think you know how to answer that question.
It's been really good. It's kind of pulled me out of my shell. I used to be very, very quiet. Didn't have any friends particularly. Did lose a few when I started my transition. But having come back into biking, met loads of people locally, nationally, internationally. It's just so nice that people are sort of going, yep. And because that pressure's lifted off of me, I've kind of relaxed in myself and become more sort of happy in myself, outgoing, more adventurous as well, really. Done some really, really nice things.
Yeah, let's talk about all of the adventures that you've had since first, like you said, coming out 4 years ago, and then getting back into motorcycling and finding kind of your community that you've gelled with. So I know that one of the adventures that you joined was with the Women Riders World Relay. Why don't you tell us how you got involved with that and what your role was?
That I actually joined care of by women originally, because I actually saw a post from Hayley Bell on there saying about this. At the time, seemed like a bit of a strange idea that she was having, that we'd do this massive relay around the world, take this baton and just show everybody how many women ride and how many different bikes, styles, whatever we all ride. So I went, yeah, sounds a good laugh. Put my name down, spoke to Hayley personally about it because of being trans. Didn't want there to be any issues with that, and she was going, no, won't be an issue. So I signed up to do, I think it was, I can't remember whether it was leg 10 or leg 11, basically Royal Leamington Spa down to Gillingham in Kent and via the Ace Calf. And it was a case of, yeah, fine. Kind of got my head around it, and then started having a little bits of kittens about meeting loads of women. I've never ridden with a big group before, never done any long distance riding. Yeah, I've signed myself up for this weekend in March on a sports bike. No heated kit on the bike either. Old riding gear as well, so it was cold. But a friend came over with me, went over to the start and pulled into the car park at the front of the hotel, and it was just full of women, tons of different bikes. And within a couple of minutes, got chatting with others. Obviously, did all the briefings, signed the baton, met the team that I was riding with, because we split it up into smaller teams, and then kind of headed our way off down to the Ace Calf. Unfortunately, my bike decided to misbehave on the way, and I think I broke down I broke down 200 yards from the Ace Calf. I don't believe this. It just overheated. But one of my friends, who is actually here watching, stayed with me, and we eventually got it going, pulled into the Ace Calf, and just amazed at how full the place was of bikers, whether it was the people who were on the relay with us or just others there to support us. Amazing.
Was it intimidating for you to see that large of a group?
It was. It's definitely an uncomfortable thing to get into if you're not used to being in big groups, which is why it was quite nice that we broke down into smaller riding groups, which gave me the time to kind of relax and everything before we got to the Ace Calf. But yeah, it's definitely. I always worry I stand out quite a lot because I'm rather tall. But no, yeah, it was. It was just a fabulous day. Got to learn how to lane split and filter through the centre of London. Don't want to try that one again.
Trial by fire.
Yes. Yeah, I did find out afterwards that Hayley had never done it either. So I was following her.
Perfect. So you participated in that first leg, and then you decided to go completely out of your country and join a whole nother leg of the Women Riders World Relay. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, obviously the main relay had to go around the world within the year. So what all the other countries did was all these Ripple relay events. And I've been chatting with a friend who ran the Luxembourg legs. She basically invited me over. And it was a case of, yeah, okay, I'll come. Sounds a good laugh. Signed up and then went, I've never actually ridden further than I'd done on the relay, let alone ridden on my own. And I had just signed up to ride to Luxembourg, which was further away than I realised at the time. And I went, but I've got friends over there as well, and they were saying, well, if you're on your way over, come and see us as well. So I basically turned what would have been the 2-day Ripple relay into a 7-day adventure. I think I did just over 1,500 miles in 7 days, and apart from the 2 days of the Ripple relay, all of it was on my own.
So then my question for you, knowing that you had never ridden that far before, that you had never ridden out of the country before, what was it that gave you the confidence and the push to try something so new, completely on your own?
I think it was basically just the support that I've had during the main WRWR, and obviously from Motorbike Women, the confidence I've built in myself riding and everything, and just as I said, the change in the mind spirit. It's a case of, yeah, okay, I'm me. I've done this before in a car years ago, so I know how to drive abroad and used to driving on the wrong side of roads and everything. Didn't have a problem with that. It was just the whole, how are people going to accept me? Are they going to judge me? But I knew that I was going to go and stay with friends when I got there. So I had that focus. It's a case of, right, day to there, know who's there, day to there, know who's there. After the second day, it was a case of, yeah, nobody's looking at me strangely. Nobody's giving me any problems in these cases. So same thing, you just sort of relax, feel comfortable, and go, yeah, I've got this, and just keep going.
So you'd say that really having the support of a community, even if it's just one friend waiting for you, that's what made the big difference?
Yeah, it's knowing somebody's there for you. It's leaving the main relay. We rode home that day, and we'd been riding in 52-mile-an-hour crosswinds to get to the sort of the start point on that day. And as we left, they were there saying, yeah, text us when you get home, message us when you get home. If you have problems, call us, whatever. And it's just the fact that I now know that there's all these friends out there that it's a case of, if you've got a problem, shout, they come. which I've not had to use, thankfully. But it's just that kind of mental sort of stability that you get from knowing there's people who care about you out there.
So for someone who is looking for that kind of support, what would you suggest in kind of looking for your community or a group that supports you as an individual? I'm putting you on the spot.
I was going to say that's hard.
That wasn't in your PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, that's harsh. That one is. It's finding that group of people that have got a similar mindset to you, that aren't judgmental, can see you for who you are, accept you for who you are, and I've got friends who will defend me. You know, if people would, you know, I've had 2 or 3 of them say, you know, if somebody had actually been giving me grief, they would have basically stood in front and given it back, sort of thing. And it's just finding that support network of people who can take you for who you are and don't care.
So on that note, I am going to ask you about your initial reinvention of yourself. What was it that inspired you to come out as transgender?
It was a very tough time. I lost my mother back in 2011. Still never actually got over that one properly because Mum and I were so close. But then Dad actually started having problems with cancer, ended up in hospital and very, very ill, very close to death at one point. And it was that whole sort of, I shouldn't be thinking about my parents dying this early, or what I feel was early. And suddenly realising life is shorter than you think. And it was a case of, I've been putting this off for years. I feel comfortable in my surroundings, my environment, my own mental state. And it's a case of, it's time to sort of put myself first and not worry about everybody else. And then just try and sort of push myself to do it, which is quite hard.
I can imagine it, you know, a complete reinvention and you know, there's one thing to be okay with yourself, and then there's another to put yourself out there for people to have an opinion about you. And thank you for sharing your story and for being brave enough to talk to us about this first and foremost. I want to know what it felt like when you made that reinvention of yourself public. What were the feelings that you had? I know that there's probably a spectrum of emotions that you went through.
It's definitely nervous doing it because you don't know how people are going to react. You don't know how your friends are going to react. You soon find out who your true friends are when you do something like this, because the ones that can't fully cope with you and whatever seem to disappear, whether it's quickly or slowly, but you sort of notice your original friends sort of filter off. I think I've got about 3 from before I came out now. So it's you're nervous about that. You worry about how you're going to be perceived, especially when you first come out. Obviously going into things like banks and everything, having to change your details. It's easier to do it face to face because people can see you. Trying to do things over the phone can still be quite hard because people just automatically assume if you've got a deep voice, you're not the person they're speaking to. So I still have problems quite a lot of the time when somebody phones me and they start asking for me, and it's case of, yep, that's me. And I've had them query me a couple of times in this case. No, honest, it's me.
I promise.
Yeah. Joys of working in loud environments. It destroys your vocal cords at the best of times. So I haven't been able to really improve.
What are the pros? What are the positives?
A very huge weight off your shoulder. It does feel like somebody's taken a massive weight off your shoulders. You feel more relaxed, even when things are going wrong. You sort of go, yeah, okay, it's just going wrong. But you just kind of feel, even when you're out and about and you're walking, it feels almost like there's a new sort of spring in your step. It's such a weird thing to try and explain. I think various people have it slightly differently, but for me, it was just that knowledge that I wasn't trying to hide anymore. I wasn't trying to fake who I was. I wasn't having to pretend I liked things that you kind of have to like if you're male. So coming back into biking is a bit strange to an extent on that one, because everyone normally thinks that you're male if you're right. But yeah, we've proven how many amazing female riders there are out there.
Amen. I think that a lot of us can relate on a certain level. I know that there are a lot of attendees here, and a lot of women in general, who know that a lot of times they have to hide that they're a motorcyclist from their families, especially their parents. And that sort of transition to saying, this is who I am and this is what I love, and you're going to love me for who I am. I think that, that weight lifted off of your shoulders is something that we can relate to on a different scale, obviously. But that I think everyone's with you on that one. I think we all know the feeling, and we all, we can all kind of bond together on that one. I see an extremely confident person in front of me right now on the screen. Becoming a motorcyclist and doing what you've done, on your own, there's a lot of adventures that you've taken in the last year alone. And it's just amazing to see what this weight off of your shoulders has allowed you to do in your life. So I want to hear a little bit more about the cool camping adventures that you took since getting the Triumph Tiger. And you have a couple of funny stories about dropping the motorcycle too. And I know that that's embarrassing, but you shared them with me, so I'm going to ask you about them.
I was going to say, which embarrassing drop was it now? It's a case of that. Yes. I shall stop counting them. The camping trip was quite an interesting one. That was down to the event called the Overland event, which is basically a motorcycle, I want to say adventure event, but it's for anybody who rides bikes who wants to travel on them. There's proper guest speakers, there's workshops, and it's basically chilled out weekend. No big trade sales or anything. You're all there camping, you're all there to chat stories, and you could be there chatting away to somebody and they could have ridden halfway around the world, and you just share your stories, whether it's huge runs or short distances, and it's just so nice, so relaxed. And similar thing, didn't really have too many problems. Had a couple, but nothing major. It's actually the first time I've been camping, one with a bike, and two since I've actually transitioned. So yeah, it was definitely a new one for me. And then went down and saw, this was before my dad died, so I actually went and saw my dad on the bike for the first time, fully loaded up. But he's just looking at me going, oh my goodness. But he can't speak, or couldn't speak, because he rode 3/4 of the way up to the UK on a scooter in his 20s. So he did a fair bit. Dropping bikes, I think dropping the Tiger in Germany is probably the most embarrassing one. Um, I was just having one of those off days. I don't know whether you can relate. You just don't quite feel right. And I'd stopped off to eat something and drink something in this little lay-by out in the woods, nobody around. Went to leave. As I was pulling out, there was a much bigger camber than I realised on the side of the road. And just as I came to stop, the front wheel dropped into a rut. And obviously, that's it. She's going.
No.
Yep. Yeah, dropped her down on her right side. I was a case of, okay, I've watched all the videos. I know how you lift a bike up. It's easy. I've got this. I've got the strength to do this. And then I suddenly realised, that's another drawback of transitioning is once you start changing your hormones, your strength changes, the way your body handles changes. So I tried. I didn't get the bike up. Probably didn't help that the actual wheels were, I don't know, half a metre off the ground. The camber was that steep. So I had to lift it that far to get the wheels on the ground. And then I ran out of oomph to lift it the rest of the way because I was so far up. Thank goodness an off-duty fireman came down the track, and it was a case of flagging him down in my best German, which is very, very bad. Going, can you help me lift my bike up? And yeah, between the two of us, we eventually managed to lift the Tiger back up. And it was a case of thank God for that. It's a case of took a bit of a shaky ride down to where I was staying that night. Did mess up a junction in Belgium as well afterwards because I forgot some of the priorities changed there. But same thing because my head just wasn't quite there. Stayed at this fab little 2-caravan Airbnb place. And the couple opposite I could see out of mine sort of kept looking at the main gate. And the owner had said they've been living there for a while because one of them's actually working locally. So I was just expecting they were waiting for a friend or something. Found out the next day they were actually waiting for my riding partner because they weren't used to seeing a woman on a bike on her own or a solo biker, especially female, out. And yeah, the owner had actually told him by this point that this was my way back home. So I'd already been through France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany. I only had to go back through Belgium to get back into the UK. And they were just going, and she's doing it on her own. I was getting, yeah. So it was cool.
Cool feeling, isn't it? And people are like, what? You're doing what? You're awesome. We have a couple of really interesting questions from the group, if you don't mind me asking a couple of those. Does that sound okay?
Yep, go for it.
Oh, okay. So the first question is anonymous. What are the biggest differences that you experienced before and after your transition that relate to motorcycling? I think we talked about this yesterday.
It's I would say it's the way that people react. If you go for a ride with just a pure group of men, especially over here, as I don't know how bad it is in the US, but from what we were saying yesterday, you obviously get some as well. But over here, quite regularly, it's that you turn up at wherever you're going to start from, all say hi, grab a drink, whatever. You know where you're going, and that's it. It's a case of as soon as you start putting out, especially if you've got a mix of engine, mix of bikes, mix of speeds and whatever, they'll just open the throttle and go on. So if you've got a fast bike, they're gone. They just leave you standing. They don't, they don't concern themselves on the ride. If they have been together and you break down, quite often they'll just leave you as well. But obviously doing the relay and then doing some of the group rides I've done, as a female, you stay together. You look after your people. You know who your lead is. You know who your tail is. You put your slower riders towards the front so they're not falling off the back of the group, and you can ride to it. And if there's a problem, you stop. You try and fix it. If it's something that's going to be silly, like my one in London, you just go, yeah, fine. Rest of you carry on. We know we'll get there in a minute once it warms up. But you stick together for it. If there's a problem, you stand and help. And we've proved it. I've been with a friend before when they've had a crash, and if we'd all disappeared off, she would have been there on her own. But thankfully, we were there with her, so we could all help.
Thank you for answering that question. I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I love that your experience is that women stick together and take care of each other, even on motorcycles. I think that's fantastic. I do have a couple of comments from the chat as well. I just want you to know that people are saying, stoked that you are a part of our community, Laura.
Thank you.
This one's funny. From an American, Jen wants to know, is the Ace Cafe scene really as cool as it looks?
You've been in there as well, haven't you now?
Yes. But the question's for you.
It's interesting because I've obviously I've been in there twice. The first one was the main relay day, so it was absolutely packed solid of bikers, and it had such a massive buzz going on in there. It really was good. The last one was February, just after the final party. 4 of us turned up on bikes. There was a few there on cars. Obviously, some of the ladies came over in taxis and whatever. And the atmosphere was completely different. It didn't quite have the same buzz going on. It was nice, but it needs to have a big event going on in there to keep that feeling of what it probably was like originally.
We have a couple of facilities like that here in the United States called Quaker Steak and Lube, and it's definitely a different atmosphere when there's a big event going on. So I know that there's a lot of us who have experienced that event who can relate as well. Can you talk about mentors that you have, how important they are to you? You obviously don't have to name them by name, but anybody who has maybe helped you along the way more than others that stand out?
Most of the WR admins, so I won't bother naming them because they know who they are, and there's a few of them, but they've stood by me from day one. They've supported me from day one in it. I've become very good friends with a couple of them, and actually stayed with one of them so far when I did my European trip. There's a couple of the ladies that I'm pretty sure are here at the moment who've really helped me, including my sweeper that I had during the main relay, and she knows who she is. I've got a few locally that have been really nice, just to be able to sort of go, I'm free, do you want a drink? Let's go out. There is lots. There's probably more than I can mention, but there is definitely quite a few.
It all comes back to having that community that you know that you can go to when you need something. It sounds like you have had a ton of support, and I'm so grateful for that, because it means that we got to meet.
Yes.
Michelle, yes. Michelle says, hello, inspirational friend, sending you love and a huge hug from South Dakota. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It sounds like you overcame many fears to do some of the riding that you have done. What are you most proud of in regards to your riding?
Probably just the fact that I am back riding. I know it sounds almost sounds cliche, but getting back onto a bike, getting out, being very visible, and getting to explore. Yeah, I think when I had my first bike, the furthest I probably rode was half an hour from where I lived. Yeah, I don't think anything of, I've done 300 plus miles in a weekend. It just doesn't even faze me now. So, and unfortunately with this lockdown, I'm missing the bike. It's really, really difficult. Had to move 2 of them yesterday, so that's given me a bike fix for. I did. I sold my old house. I have to move the bikes.
Perfect.
I'm not letting the new owners have my bikes. But it's also now giving me the time to sit here and think, right, what do I want to do? Goes back to the relay. So many friends from it have said, you need to come and see me. Yeah, come and stay with me. We've got to go and ride together. So I've been starting to plan a couple of trips so far.
Yeah, lockdowns suck. So Jen wants to know if your relationship to the motorcycle has changed from before when you rode as a male and now as a female. I know you mentioned earlier that your strength kind of changed when you changed your hormones.
Yes.
So lifting it was different.
Yeah, strength's changed. The reason I never got on with my first bike was it was a naked style bike. If I got it over, up to decent speed, even then I struggled with keeping on to it. I couldn't keep the grip. Always felt I was being blown off. I don't weigh anything, so I blow off very easily. So that was the reason for getting the FZR. It was fully fed, so I had that protection. So that then got me comfortable riding again. Obviously, buying the Tiger after I put the FZR down. Same thing. It's a nice, big, protected bike. It's comfy to ride. I could just sit on it and I can ride that, even if I can't always lift it up again.
Laura, what about emotions? Do you feel like your emotional reaction to the motorcycle has changed, especially with obviously the hormonal transition?
Yes, I'm definitely noticing more. I know various people have said about it before, but sort of the motorcycle therapy, the headspace there, and the isolation, being able to go and think while you're out, or not think. I've actually been off to see to have a proper psych meeting because I was getting stressed about stuff, and it was a nice day. So I went, I'll take the bike, and on the ride down, I pretty much forgot everything that was stressing me because it was all stupid. It was all loads of stupid things building up over time. And you're out on the bike, you have to think about your riding, obviously everyone else around you. So any sort of tiny little things that shouldn't be a concern do tend to disappear out of your thoughts.
Have you felt more fearful towards being hurt? Or do you feel like you actually have more confidence now?
I definitely feel more confident. Obviously, the more miles I'm putting in, the more confident I'm feeling. I still worry about having a big accident and hurting myself. But touch wood, so far, the couple of times I have come off, I've bounced. The only thing I have really dented was my bank account after writing a £500 showy off.
Oh yeah, that can definitely do it.
Oh god, yeah.
So I have a couple more questions from the group. A couple of these are really interesting. I have an adult child who is non-binary, and I wonder, how do we include non-binary trans people into the moto community? Kind of eliminating the gender bias language of male and female. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions about that? Sorry, put you on the spot again.
I was going to say that might, if we can do that by message later, I'll come back to that one.
Sure.
It's definitely one
Absolutely.
I would say, not being rude, it's definitely what I could do with sort of thinking about, but it's probably easier to write it down. It is very difficult. Yeah, I know you do sort of refer, obviously you refer to each other male and female pronouns, but you also seem to do it with your bikes as well, whether you realize it or not. So it's not an easy one, but I would definitely, if they don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as an instructor, I know that one of the things that we were taught was trying to refer to riders as riders and nothing more or nothing less. So that's one of the suggestions that I can give, although I am not an authority on this in any way, shape, or form. But Laura will absolutely be able to talk more with you about this through email a little bit later. So as long as that's okay. Our friend Deborah says, I have friends that have transitioned as you have, and some have had great difficulty with severe depression. Have you had to deal with that?
I think, as weird as it sounds, I've probably actually had less depression now since I've come out than before, because same thing, I'm not bottling stuff up. I'm being more open. I've got friends that I can talk to, so same sort of thing. I'm not building up the stresses and whatever. But I do know, similar thing. I do know people suffer quite regularly with depression. Some of it's down to the change in hormones, obviously the way it changes the way things work. It's very tricky, and I think this goes back to having that good core network of friends. Is the good ones can see how you're doing, whether you want to admit it or not. They can see, and they'll kind of nag you, message you, chase after you, whatever, just to see if you're all right. And it does work. So, that's what, for me anyway.
Support groups are so important, and I think you've absolutely proved that by answering our questions today. Sylvia wants to know if any of your masculine competitiveness went away after your transition. Obviously, as it relates to motorcycling.
I'm a lot calmer in my day-to-day riding. I will go out and have a lot of fun. I am still fancying doing some track work, but more on the lines of the networking and the friends and whatever. It's a case of, fine, winning would be nice, but I don't expect to be able to win. I was never that competitive to start with, really. I always have been sort of it will do, but I love having those kind of little rivalries, even if they're not majorly competitive. So something like riding on the track would be quite a good laugh, I think.
Sounds like something you should probably put on your to-do list. I'll come over and we can go ride the track together.
Yeah, there's two nice ones just up the road here, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I visited a couple when I was in England and they're pretty fantastic. So a little bit earlier, you mentioned that you were riding the day that you crashed in Germany, your head wasn't all in the game. So this anonymous question wants to know, do you find that it's best to try and push through it when your head isn't all in the game, or should you put the ride off if possible to another day? What is your advice on that?
If you've got the time to put the ride off, I would definitely say put the ride off, because you aren't riding fully safe and sensibly. For me, I didn't have that choice because I was obviously abroad and I had to be in certain places at certain times. It would have been an extremely long ride back from Germany to England. It's bad enough from Belgium to England. I did, what is it, the day after I crashed in Germany, I then rode about 450 miles in a day to get home. So it would have been a nightmare if I'd included them. But yeah, I've had days where it's a case of, yeah, I'd been thinking about going for a ride, and then just you wake up and you go, yeah, don't quite feel it. And I go, no, I'll sit it out. I'll do something else. I'll do something on the bike. Relax. If I feel better later, I'll go out later. But if I'm not feeling it at the time, unless you physically have to, I personally wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, that's great advice, Laura. I have one more question to ask you, and then we are going to be up on time. This one is a fun one. What has been your favorite destination so far?
Favorite destination has actually got to be Luxembourg. Just Luxembourg's definitely a hidden gem for riding. Having now ridden it is, I don't know how long the US Ripple Relay took to get round all of the US. Luxembourg Ripple Relay, we did all the borders of Luxembourg in 2 days, and that wasn't and that wasn't fast riding. There was loads of sort of twisty roads, fabulous scenery, great food, fab people, and it is just such a lovely place to go and ride. But yeah, the fact that we did go round it in 2 days, it was a case of, was that it?
Sounds like a fantastic trip and a fantastic place to ride. I know it's definitely one of my bucket list places to go as well. Okay, so I don't want to cut this short, but I do have to stay on track. I want to say thank you so much for having the strength to come on here and talk about things that aren't easy to talk about. And we all admire you for sharing your true self with us, for having the strength to act on your feelings and who you really are. And we are so grateful to have you as part of our community. And you are welcome over in the United States anytime. You've got a whole network of people ready to have you over. So you can just go all the way across the United States. I don't know about the whole border thing, but you have absolutely shown us all how important it is to be true to ourselves. And we all want to say thank you so much for that.
Thank you for, the advantages of meeting the first, and thank you for thinking of me for being part of this. It's been nervous doing it, but it's been good at the same time.
Awesome. We got to push you. I'm going to push you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Thank you to all of the attendees who were here. If you did not have your question answered by Laura already, she is going to be able to answer you via email. So thank you all so much for participating, for sending in your questions. We're going to take a 10-minute break. And when we come back, we will be doing a panel discussion. So that will be an hour and a half about transformative writing. And that discussion is going to be led by Jen Dunstan. So go make some tea, get yourself a snack, and we'll see y'all in 10 minutes. Thank you. Bye.
See ya.